Hello, we are Group 6, and we will be presenting Delivering Through Disruption and the leadership lessons that can be learned from the 2024 Canada Post strike. So, we'll start with overview and key highlights. The strike lasted from November 15 to December 17 during 2024, during the holiday season. And the parties that were involved were Canada Post and the Canadian Union of Postal Workers. Core issues for why there was a strike in the first place was a few things, right? So wages, job security, workload concerns, and the challenges of modernization. So for a quick timeline, the negotiations began in mid 2024. That's when they were starting to discuss the concerns and the requests and what the ramifications were if these concerns were not met. The strike began on November 15th, and this caused panic since it was near the holiday season and a lot of people were expecting their parcels. There was government mediation that was attempted in late November, and then finally there was a temporary suspension on December 17th. The main reasons for this was the wage adjustments and the cost of living, technological upgrades and workload distribution, job security in the era of automation, and health and safety. So there was a negotiation for a collective agreement that started in the summer of 2024. The CUPW cited inflationary pressures and increased workloads as a major concern. So the impact on operations was the parcel deliveries experienced significant backlogs. Small businesses faced shipping delays, particularly during the holiday season, and some customers resorted to private couriers to ensure timely delivery. Key leadership roles. The standing CEO was Doug Ettinger. He still is the CEO. He was advocating for modernizing postal services to address e-commerce demands, and he engaged in public communication to reassure customers. And the other leadership role was for Jan Simpson. She was the national president of CUPW, the Postal Worker Union. She led negotiations emphasizing fair wages, job security, and health and safety measures. And then she organized strike votes, oversaw picket lines, and held press briefings. And then the other shareholder key leadership role is that of the managers and supervisors. Coordinated contingency plans to maintain critical mail service, handled reassignments and workload distribution for non-striking staff, and acted as liaisons between frontline workers and upper management during negotiations. And finally, the another important role was by that of the government mediators, stepped in when negotiations reached an impasse in late November, and assisted in drafting a professional agreement that led to the December 17 suspension. Now we're gonna move on to the impact.
The Canada Post strike highlighted a stark contrast in ideals between business and employees. Canada Post has shown an autocratic and pacekeeping leadership style, as their main concern appears to be financially based as well as capability of keeping up with other delivery companies such as Amazon. In order to gain profits and keep up with high delivery demand, Canada Post has expressed their intentions to hire part-time and temporary contract workers to cover more delivery times, including weekends. Canada Post has stated that having all full-time employees would be financially unsustainable. There is evidence that consideration for the health and safety of their employees is also not a concern. According to interviews, Canada Post has denied multiple employees their health coverage during the strike period, which resulted in undue stress when already dealing with serious health issues such as cancer, as well as taking the drastic action as temporarily laying off multiple employees during the strike. One of the main sticking points between Canada Post and the union are full-time indeterminate jobs. Without hiring full-time workers, Canada Post is not required to follow the pay incentive and promotions that fall under the collective agreement. Stephen Tuft, a professor who specializes in labor market research with York University, said Canada has been seeing a round of catch-up bargaining between unions and employers, with wages stagnating over the pandemic and not keeping up with inflation. The Canadian Union of Postal Workers are bargaining for an increase of wages in 19% over 4 years, while Canada Post has countered with 11.5%. Canada Post workers currently receive 7 personal days off and are requesting 10 medical days. Canada Post has counted with 13 days off total for personal use depending on employee demand. The largest sticking point in negotiations between the organizations, again, is full-time employment. The union is demanding that most employees, including currently contracted jobs such as cleaning staff, be hired full-time. Surveys have shown the average Canadian citizen felt unaffected by the strike, but many businesses, especially small businesses, lost millions of dollars during the striking period. According to the Angus Reid Association, 40% of people said they felt a little bit of an impact, though the impact did affect age groups differently. Surveys show that the younger population have felt the strike the most. Those who felt the largest impact overall appear to be those who run small businesses. It is reported that small businesses in Canada lost $765 million in revenue throughout the strike period. Some business owners have stated that they will no longer be using Canada Post as their primary delivery service as they have lost trust in the company. According to case studies provided by freeadvice.com, a successful strike would be willingly going back to work with better conditions and safety measures. An unsuccessful strike is described as the employer potentially hiring temporary employees and overworking those who are at work, and employees eventually having to return to work without any improvements. The Canada Post strike was clearly ineffective as Canada Post did hire temporary workers to take over during the strike, and the strikers were then ordered back to work by the federal government. And to this day, negotiations are ongoing and no solutions have been made.
Some strategic suggestions for better ways to improve leadership communication and conflicts are to teach managers and union representatives how to handle conflicts effectively. Using mediation early in disputes can help solve issues faster. Also, they can encourage employees and union representatives to take part in decisions. And finally, they can also use outside experts to help resolve disputes fairly and prevent long strikes. The key takeaways on how leadership influenced outcomes are that the federal government had stepped in and sent the issue to the Canadian Industrial Relations Board, which helped end the strike. Also, Canada's leaders looked at their financial struggles and needed to make changes. These financial problems affected their approach during talks, which eventually led to the strike. Lessons learned from the Canada Post strike are that the strike had caused delays in mail and package delivery, which hurt online businesses and small companies that depended on fast postal services. Also, the strike showed how important it is to balance providing essential services while also addressing workers' needs.